Yes, yes. It is Mexican cartels verified by U.S. one-day kill strike. Let's get it, man.
Die every single day from drug poisonings. After years of watching the toll rise, the nation has finally had enough. Now the United States is at war, one designed to last a single day, and it's sending a message its enemies can't ignore. Officially, it's a counter-drug mission. Unofficially, it looks like the first strike in a one-day war plan aimed straight at the cartels and the regime that shields them. And the justification is grim. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for Americans between the ages of 18 and 45. Deadlier than car accidents, approaching the lethality of COVID at its peak, and more devastating than any foreign terrorist group in 2 decades. In congressional hearing rooms, DEA administrators don't sugarcoat it. Lab testing now shows 6 out of every 10 seized fentanyl pills now contains a lethal dose. The cartels which produce and transfer these drugs across American borders have been getting more brazen by the decade. And Washington? Well, Washington is done asking nicely. As Joint Task Force Southern Spear, led by the USS Gerald R. Ford, steams south, something far bigger than a single deployment is beginning to take shape. It's the opening phase of a broader operational blueprint, synchronized, crushing action across 3 fronts: law enforcement blitzes, financial strangulation, and military-grade intelligence operations, all designed to hit cartels simultaneously everywhere all at once. It's 5 a.m. in 23 American cities, and swarms of DEA agents, local SWAT teams, FBI task forces, and Homeland Security investigators are all placing breaching charges on doors. Without warning, they storm in through the blast. In Chicago, a Sinaloa distribution cell's safe house yields 440 pounds of fentanyl powder. In Phoenix, agents seize millions of cartel cash stuffed in drywall. In New York, Boston, and LA, cartel money couriers find themselves face down on the pavement, hands zip-tied, watching years of prison time materialize before their eyes. It's the first prong of Operation Overdrive unfolding in real time. The DEA initiative was launched in 2022 to target the most violent and overdose-plagued cities in America. Using national crime data and CDC overdose records to pinpoint hotspots of cartel-driven violence, the DEA spent a year running parallel efforts called Operation Last Mile. From May 2022 to May 2023, agents launched over 1,400 investigations, resulting in 3,300 arrests. They seized nearly 44 million fentanyl pills, more than 6,500 pounds of fentanyl powder, 8,500 firearms, and more than $100 million in cash. That is nearly 193 million deadly doses of fentanyl pulled off of American streets. This is different from your run-of-the-mill drug bust that you see on the evening news. More than 1,100 of these cases involved social media apps and encrypted communication platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Telegram, and Signal. The DEA had to map entire networks by tracing digital breadcrumbs across continents. Building prosecutions that do more than grab lowly street dealers meant dismantling distribution cells from Mexico to Minneapolis. And in August of 2025, the tempo accelerated.
Free Minneapolis, man. Free my people, man. Let them, those are born Americans, man. Let them people, you know what I mean? They got their citizenship, man. Free my peoples over there. And, yeah, man. Let's get to the cartels, man. You know what I mean?
In a week-long series of operations targeting the Sinaloa cartel, DEA agents launched coordinated strikes that resulted in more than 600 arrests. But that is just the first of the government's triple-pronged strategy to strangle the cartels. The second front is financial strangulation, pressure that became decisive the moment cartels stopped stashing their profits in cash. Today, cartels are sophisticated. Shell companies registered in Wyoming, crypto wallets bouncing payments through 16 countries, real estate portfolios that would make hedge fund managers jealous. But the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, is getting just as sophisticated. Over the years, OFAC has sanctioned over 600 Sinaloa cartel-linked individuals and companies. When you are sanctioned, every dollar you touch becomes radioactive. Banks won't process your transactions, and legitimate businesses won't work with you. Your assets freeze globally, not just in the US. It's a bit like being unplugged from the financial grid, while the lights are on everywhere else. Recent hits demonstrate the strategy's effect. In April 2025, the Treasury designated 6 individuals and 7 entities involved in a money laundering network supporting the Sinaloa cartel. One target, Alberto David Bengat Jimenez, operates a money laundering network that's moved over $50 million to date. Another, Enrique Dan Esparragosa Rosas, has laundered at least $16.5 million for the Sinaloa cartel as of April 2023. They are just the tip of the iceberg. But the Treasury doesn't just target Mexican nationals. In July 2024, OFAC sanctioned China-based members for money laundering with criminal links to the Sinaloa cartel. This was important, as it officially recognized what many had long been claiming, that Chinese money laundering organizations, or CMLOs, are one of the key actors laundering money professionally in the US and worldwide. It helps that the Treasury has massive leverage over the correspondent banking system, basically the pipes through which international money flows. Want to move drug money from Culiacan to Shanghai to LA? You need to access banks that can process dollar transactions, and every major bank on earth wants access to the US financial system more than they want your dirty money. The Treasury's message here is simple. If you help the cartels, you lose your access to dollars. Most banks will choose dollars every time. Crypto looked like a viable escape hatch until blockchain forensics companies like Chainalysis turned it into a trafficking device. Every Bitcoin transaction is permanent, public, and traceable. So while the cartels thought they found anonymity, they actually found themselves on a ledger book the DEA can subpoena. But if this has been happening in the United States' immediate neck of the woods, domestically and spilling over into Mexico, why the sudden focus on military and intelligence action in the Caribbean and off the coast of South America? That's where the third prong of America's strategy comes in, making law enforcement bleed into something that looks suspiciously like warfare, and that's by design. Today, satellites hover over cartel labs 24/7, watched in the same way the Pentagon watches terrorist compounds in Yemen. Drones track convoys moving north toward the border or shipments heading out to sea. Signals intelligence offices scoop up phone calls, text messages, and radio chatter across both hemispheres. The NSA treats cartel communications like they're Al-Qaeda plotting the next 9/11 attack, since statistically at least, the cartels are doing far worse damage to the American people. The asset allocation is staggering just to keep tabs on possible threats, but
You heard him, man. They doing worse than, you know what I mean? Stop playing, man. Stop playing. Donald Trump, leave my people alone.
it's not surprising. In January 2023, Reps Dan Crenshaw and Mike Waltz introduced an authorization for use of military force, or AUMF, resolution to allow the president to use military force against the cartels. The AUMF specifically named the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation Cartel and would allow the president to use, quote, all necessary and appropriate force. Crenshaw's pitch, we must start treating them like ISIS, he said, because that is who they are. Yeah, it sparked controversy. Mexican President López Obrador accused Crenshaw of warmongering, but it was a firm signal of where U.S. policy was headed. Waltz explained the resolution as necessary because cartels had exceeded the capacity of law enforcement and were a virtual paramilitary arm in their own right, armed with armored vehicles, heavy weapons, and billions of dollars at their disposal. And it's not just talk. Since early September, Operation Southern Spear has carried out more than 20 air and naval strikes on vessels Washington says are drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, killing over 80 suspected traffickers. The Pentagon says many of those targets are tied to Venezuelan groups like Tren de Aragua and to Colombian guerrillas moving cocaine north by sea. In 2024 alone, U.S. and allied officials estimated that 350 to 500 tons of cocaine were leaving Venezuela each year.
It's a lot of dope. It's a lot of dope. Shit. Folks got money.
Much of it via Caribbean routes toward North America and Europe. Now, the Ford Carrier Strike Group has sailed in, joining the party of amphibious ships, cruisers, destroyers, F-35s, and patrol aircraft. For scale, it is nearly 1/5 of all U.S. Navy warships currently deployed worldwide. At the same time, the State Department is calling Cartel de las Soles a foreign terrorist organization after already slapping the same label on Tren de Aragua. In other words, the one-day war idea is no longer just about Mexican cartels and the southwest border. It's aimed at transnational cartel systems stretching from the jungles of Colombia through Venezuela's corrupted state networks across the Caribbean and into U.S. ports and cities. And it is terrifying the cartels. Modern cartels look chaotic from the outside, but inside they are surprisingly structured. In Mexico, you have your classic plaza boss, or jefe de plaza, running each territory. Under him, mid-level lieutenants manage local enforcement teams, chemists, transport crews, and money handlers. In the U.S., the network stretches into distribution cell managers in major cities, stash house operators, and financial coordinators, moving money through banks, shell companies, and crypto. It's the exact same pattern you'll see with the Venezuelan and Colombian linked networks. You might see prison-based leadership in Tren de Aragua or local cell bosses scattered from Chile to Canada. In Venezuela, that might mean state-embedded protectors inside of the country's own security forces and Cartel de las Soles. When the state hits one of those nodes hard, the system stutters. Take the January 2023 recapture of Ovidio Guzman Lopez, one of the leaders of the Sinaloa cartel and son of El Chapo. Mexican forces grabbed him in Culiacan after a massive operation involving helicopters and armored vehicles, triggering hours of gun battles and roadblocks as cartel gunmen tried to break him out. For days, Sinaloa's internal communications went haywire. Convoys scrambled, safe houses were burned or evacuated, and local bosses panicked about who would be next. Encrypted apps make it harder for law enforcement to read messages, but they don't remove the need to coordinate. You still see the same phones near the same ports, the same trucks on the same routes, the same officers on duty when certain ships slip out of Venezuelan harbors. Once the U.S. points military-grade surveillance, signals intelligence, and carrier-borne aircraft at those patterns, command structures stop feeling invisible and start feeling exposed. A one-day war could snatch away multiple mid- and upper-tier players at once, and that's what's kept the bosses awake at night. If you're a cartel in today's security environment, geography is both a blessing and a trap. There are only so many viable corridors, specific land ports of entry at the U.S.-Mexico border, where most fentanyl is smuggled in vehicles and on people. Likewise, there are specific maritime routes from Colombia and Venezuela through the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific routes where cocaine and poly drug loads ride go-fast boats to their market of choice. As the U.S. floods those lanes with surveillance aircraft, naval patrols, and random missile strikes, it chokes the map. Sure, cartels can reroute, but every detour means longer trips, more expenses, more fuel, more bribes, and higher chances of being spotted. Insurance costs and risk premiums inside the underworld spike. Soon, smaller players get priced out, but the bigger ones still face tougher questions from their own investors and allies. Can you get the shipment through? The cartels have seen governments go big.
Good question. That's a good question. Could they get that shipment through?
Big Four. In 2008, DEA's Project Reckoning targeted the Gulf Cartel and its allies with coordinated sweeps across the US, Mexico, and Italy. Over 500 people were arrested, including major lieutenants, and authorities seized around 16 tons of cocaine and $60.1 million in cash. A similar operation, Project Deliverance, resulted in more than 2,200 arrests and over 150 million seized. Now, imagine that kind of multi-country shock, plus a carrier strike group offshore and drones hunting your boats at night. When raids, seizures, and airstrikes all hit within hours, nobody in the organization knows what the government actually knows. Is that banker under indictment talking? Did some junior accountant flip? Did a corrupt port official get...
Damn, you heard him, my nigga. Did that, huh? Did that banker, he started thinking, hey, what's going on? Who's talking? What do they know? What? Who do they get? Where are they going? What? A lot of questions being asked, huh?
hit within hours, nobody in the organization knows what the government actually knows. Is that banker under indictment talking? Did some junior accountant flip? Did a corrupt port official get caught on tape? After that, it's reasonable for phones to go dark. Maybe your trusted courier might vanish. Perhaps people stop answering calls.
Threw the whole phone in the ocean, yeah? Broke the phone in half and threw it, chucked it, huh? And got paranoid. What do you think? Everyone went black, dark.
Junior accountant flip.
Nobody knew nothing, not even the government, but a banker knew that. Knew it.
Did a corrupt port official get caught on tape? After that, it's reasonable for phones to go dark. Maybe your trusted courier might vanish. Perhaps people stop answering calls from Venezuela or Sinaloa because they don't know who might be listening. Soon, mid-level commanders start running their own risk calculations instead of blindly following orders. That fear spreads downward. Street-level carriers in New York or Madrid, linked to Venezuelan groups like Tren de Aragua, might wake to headlines about warships off of South America and looming terrorist designations. Suddenly, they rethink their loyalty to an organization they once dismissed as just a gang. Recruitment inevitably suffers when job performance suddenly looks like it'll be documented on a drone feed in some sterile war room. America's shock and awe military action against the cartels is designed clearly to scare the middle layer, not just the kingpins in their bunkers. Designating them material support to a terrorist group being hunted like ISIS shifts the risk-reward calculus. 10 years in a U.S. prison or worse.
When you go to Guantanamo Bay, huh? They classify you as That's when the whole game changes, man. You're not, oh, my G, my ninja. You are not only just a dope dealer or a dope trafficker. You are now, classified as a foreign terrorist, not even a domestic, a foreign entity. They will look. They will grab.
Being on a boat that suddenly
They
explodes
will
in
kill
the
you.
night
They will kill you.
starts to look less attractive than keeping a clean compliance file. As mid-level facilitators get picked off, there's a good chance the others will start cooperating with prosecutors. It's all built into the strategy. Every arrest, every death is a chance for a cascade
Can't
of
start
cooperation.
talking, man. A lot of snitches. The rats, huh? Start biting on the cheese, huh? What? You better not snitch, dog. Better take it to the chin, right there, huh? Right to the button. Do your time. Do your push-ups. Read a book.
Operation, where one launderer rolls on a broker who rolls on a colonel who rolls on a boss, and so on. The cartels also watch politics, so they know that a lot of this is just political theater. They know U.S. administrators routinely swing between law enforcement first rhetoric and war on terror bluster. For today's administration, the idea of a massive synchronized one-day campaign with hundreds of arrests, seizures, and a few dramatic vessel strikes plays well on cable news and social media. It shows voters that Washington is, quote, doing something about fentanyl and cartel violence. For cartels, that political theater is terrifying because it means restraint is gone. If an administration decides that killing suspected traffickers at sea is politically profitable, how difficult would it be to justify covert action on land or cyber operations
They will smoke them all. What do you think? One by one. In the water and on land, huh? In the air.
aimed at their finances? Cartel
You ready, man? Cartel, man. You ready?
leaders can't know how far the U.S. will actually go. That uncertainty is part of the weapons package. Even if the U.S. never bombs a cartel compound in Venezuela or Colombia, the mere possibility forces traffickers, bankers, and local officials to think twice before signing on. But that doesn't mean the U.S. won't have to contend with a host of potential pitfalls. Knocking off a cartel boss can feel like swatting a giant, only to see two heads grow back. In Colombia, the collapse of the Medellin cartel in the early 90s gave way to the rise of the Cali cartel and eventually dozens of splinter groups. In Mexico, watching El Chapo Guzman fall was supposed to mark victory over the Sinaloa cartel. Instead, operations fragmented and violence surged. Empirical research finds the kingpin strategy often correlates with higher homicide rates. The Hydra emerges when a second tier fights to fill the vacuum. Territorial disputes flare up, lieutenants start tiptoeing into adjacent corridors for unscheduled meetings, and smaller groups, less disciplined, more ruthless, perhaps, rise up. Then, the cockroach effect kicks in. U.S. policymakers should be well wary of this from their brutal experiences waging counterterrorism in the Middle East. When you stomp on one visible organization, a scurry of smaller ones scatter. So one day, a cartel has a single plaza boss. Next, it has 22 microcells. In response to pressure, they shift to autonomous cells, which are harder to map. They encrypt all their comms, corrupt their tech infrastructure, and migrate operations to a less watched country. The rise of ultra-lethal synthetics like fentanyl, where small volume still leads to massive damage, further shrinks the necessary operational footprint. The playbook soon leads to the swarm getting leaner, faster, and harder to pin down. And that's the ugly part of this whole one-day war scenario. Even if the U.S. manages to decapitate cartel leadership, the violence does not go away, it shifts. Attempts to arrest cartel leaders in the past have plunged entire cities into urban warfare, underscoring the risk of heavy-handed action. Mexico's president has expressly pushed a hugs not bullets approach, in part because of the backlash and collateral damage such interventions usually provoke. There's also a sovereignty minefield to navigate. Dropping bombs, launching raids, or missile strikes inside of another country without consent is messy legal territory. Mexico's constitution forbids foreign military operations on its soil without authorization, but past U.S. interventions in Latin America haunt the diplomacy ledger. If Washington begins to use overt military force against cartels inside allied states like Mexico, Venezuela, or Colombia, it sets a precedent. What would stop Russia, China, or any other power from doing the same in the Caribbean, in Africa, or even within our own hemisphere? The sovereignty argument becomes a shield for host states to limit cooperation, expel agents, or even protect cartel figures in the name of national pride. Really, it could all lead to one nightmare scenario: The US hits cartels hard, and the fallout slams Mexico, Venezuela, and Colombia instead. These countries already struggle to control areas where cartels act like local governments. Add American missiles or mass arrests into that mix and you get chaos. Soon your local police forces are completely overwhelmed. The cartels retaliate by attacking governmental targets, and corrupted officials panic and start taking even bigger bribes. Entire communities, seeing the writing on the wall, might become refugees overnight to flee the civil infighting to come. In the worst case, you don't just weaken a country, you push it close to its breaking point, and a destabilized Mexico or Venezuela is a far bigger problem for the US than even the cartels themselves. A shattered economy, mass migration, and a border crisis times 10. And that's why a lot of American officials quietly remind their colleagues of the Pottery Barn analogy in foreign policy. In layman's terms, you break it, you buy it. Local police get overwhelmed, cartels retaliate by
America
attacking
gonna have to
government
buy all
targets,
these
corrupt officials panic and
South
start taking bigger
American,
bribes, and
Mexico
whole
countries,
communities
man.
flee the fighting.
Tell you,
Researchers who
it's
study
gonna
this
be
stuff
more
are
debt.
blunt about the prospects. Taking out cartel bosses sounds great on TV, but the long-term impact is usually tiny. The drugs keep flowing because the money is just too good. Kill or arrest a kingpin and someone else steps in, sometimes smarter, sometimes meaner. If Americans keep buying
Break it, you
drugs in
buy it,
record
dog.
amounts, the
America
cartels
better
will
not go
keep
in these countries,
supplying them.
man, trying to
You
buy it.
can't one-day
Simple as
war
that.
your way out of $1 trillion black market. Ultimately, if the US launches a one-day war, it'll send shockwaves throughout the international community. Raids, seizures, and sanctions will knock out a host of leaders. Cash pipelines might get torched, and entire transnational networks will undoubtedly be rattled. But history is pretty clear about the long-term prospects. Cartels survive decapitations because the forces that power them, American demand, billion-dollar profits, weak governance, and corruption on both sides of the border, don't vanish in 24 hours. Washington is gambling that relentless overlapping pressure might finally shift the math. It'll make trafficking riskier, raise the cost of violence, and make recruitment less appealing. It might work, too. It might also scatter the problem and trigger backlash, or simply push the trade into darker corners of the world. Now go check out Time's Cartels Messed with the Wrong People, or click
That
on
was
this
crazy.
video and
That was crazy, man. What y'all think of that, man? What y'all think of that, dog? Put your comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe. We're gonna have a lot more of these videos. I gotta like myself, man. Shit. Infographic show you see that, dog. I got the personalized bell on, everything. Subscribe, so you subscribe to me and we can get this done. Yes, sir. We'll be back. We'll be back.